Hello, my name is Creosticks, and I got requests to do an opinion video about Red Dead Redemption 2, so I played through to the end credits, and here we go. First off, I need to make it clear that I absolutely liked Red Dead Redemption 2, it's just that I was also disappointed because I have a considerable amount of issues with it that drag the experience down for me. And it's because I like the game so much that these issues are so glaring and problematic. It's still important to make clear that even with the faults the game has, it has a large amount of staggeringly impressive elements to it. Also, I have to give at least a mild spoiler warning. I'm not going to discuss the main story, but a number of my illustrative video clips happen in the later chapters of the game and may take place during a main or side mission. And some of my criticism is also about how missions work. First, let's cover the main things I liked. For me, the open world is the most fully realized open world in a game I've seen that feels alive, detailed, and vibrant. The staggering amount of detail in everything around you is just mind-boggling. The game also looks absolutely gorgeous, and the sound design and music are amazing. On top of that, the voice acting is super good, and it has the best cast of characters in any Rockstar game to date by quite a large margin. For me, there was only one character that I felt didn't reach the level of the rest of the cast, but going into detail about Micah would delve into talking about the other characters and about the story, about which I don't want to spoil anything. But since the open world is so staggeringly excellent, then what's the problem? Well, it's the fact that you also need to play in said open world, and with that the game stumbles for me on multitudes of fronts. I call this game the penultimate anti-quality of life simulator. Let's start with the controls. For me, the shooting, the using of items, running, looting, searching containers, and even sometimes pulling out your gun is an absolute pain in the ass. The third-person shooting controls feel simply outdated. They have that usual Rockstar gun feel that dates from somewhere in the middle of the 360 PS3 era. After adjusting the sensitivity and turning on auto-lock aiming and relying heavily on Deadeye, the shooting became mostly bearable, but still always felt clunkier than a game in 2018 should, and felt lifted straight from the GTA games. But a more pressing issue with the controls are the moments when you try to interact with the world. Meandering around with a slow as molasses movement and physics system trying to find the exact hotspot for just searching a cupboard is maddening. And if there is anything above, below, or next to the thing you want to search or pick up, good luck with that. The game even messes up an important letter that starts a side quest by placing it on top of the fast travel map on your table, which means you'll spend upward of a minute trying to find the exact magic polygon to stand on where you can actually pick up the letter instead of using the map. For some inexplicable reason, sprinting in this game still involves the patented Rockstar control scheme of keep tapping the button just to be inconvenient for the player. You can adjust the options to give you a kind of a jog without tapping of a button, but if you want to sprint, it's tappity tap tap for you. This problem is so baffling because it seems like a thing that video games solved right around the first Super Mario Bros. You should hold down the button to sprint. End of discussion, but alas, no. Speaking of movement, the game lacks a convenient fast travel system. I get it that the idea is to have you take in the scenery, but if the main method of traveling around the map is tappity-tap-tapping with your horse for 10 minutes, it removes the interest of taking anything in, especially if you've covered the same ground 20 times already. The fast travel system mostly revolves around stagecoaches and trains that cost money, if they happen to be available. This could otherwise be argued as a necessity for realism, but wait, you can also fast travel from your main camp to anywhere, but just not to your main camp or from anywhere else. So Rockstar is content on breaking the realism by adding one magic fast travel map into your camp, so that the realism argument falls to pieces, but refuses to add an actually convenient fast travel system using that same logic. So it again feels like the lack of fast travel is there only to inconvenience the player. Also, as a baffling detail, you can't buy train tickets while carrying something. So if you have luggage, you can't get on a train. Okay then. A different weird thing about moving around in the world is the fact that the game has a very common tendency of forcibly making you walk or ride slowly, instead of sprinting or galloping. This happens mostly in camps and towns, which, whatever they were going for there, only ends up making it feel annoying and sluggish, and it breaks the immersion. Especially if I have something that I want to do at camp, I don't want to be forced to walk my way everywhere slow as hell. But this happens in the open world as well. There's, for example, this one stretch of road that I went past maybe 30 times during the game trying to get from waypoint to waypoint, and the game slows you to a crawl with your horse for no apparent reason. Also, choosing your weapons and using your items is a minefield of pain. First off, the method of holding down the left bumper and then holding the right stick to point to the slice you want, and then, while still holding the bumper and the direction of the stick, you cycle the items with your triggers and use the item by letting go of the whole thing. This nightmarishly bad UI screams for the ability to set some sort of quick items you could just use with the press of a button. On top of that, the using of items is in the habit of cancelling itself out often enough to be an issue. Sometimes Arthur goes through the animation of giving his horse a treat without actually giving said treat, and most of my deaths happened because instead of using the item I told Arthur to use, he just stands up from cover like a moron and gets shot. The cover system in question is also dated beyond belief, and half the time Arthur just stands up instead of going to cover, sometimes even standing up on top of the cover. Then choosing your weapons. This is the most obvious case of Rockstar just adding a feature in order to inconvenience the player. There is no way playtesters missed an issue this massive with the weapons. Your weapons always disappear onto your horse. You choose the loadout you want to use, but when you get on your horse, within a few seconds Arthur stores the weapons back on the horse away from your inventory. So every single time you get off your horse, you need to use the horrid UI button combinations to cycle through the 15 weapons you own to choose the loadout that you likely almost always use. On top of this, the game is in the habit of forcing weapons on you during story missions, which you did not choose. The biggest offenders are the shotguns, which I never used, but lo and behold, the game takes control away from me and forces that upon me, and my actually favorite weapons stay on the horse that then runs away or is for some other reason unavailable to be used during a story mission. Then we come to how Red Dead Redemption 2 handles missions. The mission structure and rules are the most rigid thing I've ever seen in video games. When you take sometimes even 5 steps into a direction the game doesn't want you to, you fail the mission. And guns tend to teleport away from your body just at the start of those missions, even though almost every mission involves a gunfight. But Rockstar says that nope, you can't choose your weapons to this mission. Why would we allow that in our open world game about freedom and badass outlaws? In one occasion, the game literally removed my ability to access my horse, where my guns were. One of the more annoying mission instances was a moment when during a story mission I noticed a cool bird that I shot dead cleanly with a varmint rifle in hopes of skinning it and putting the carcass on my horse. The game wrestled control away from me and automatically entered a scene for the precious story, and I lost the bird carcass without ever even skinning it. One more thing about the guns and the controls when using them with any NPC is that, get this, you know how you pull out and aim the guns using the left trigger? So when you bust down a door to attack an enemy, you keep tapping that left trigger, only to realize that Rockstar switched the button on you, and now in order to pull your gun you use the right trigger because controls need to be inconvenient and bad. But it doesn't indeed stop with the guns. If you do anything other than the exact things in the exact sequence with the exact way Rockstar wants, you fail the missions. Sometimes they just cut the middleman and simply take all the control away from you and force you to either walk automatically, or in one case the game removed my ability to steer my horse left or right, causing me to hit a tree. On Another occasion, I had just bought my new fancy clothes with even fancier expensive shoes, and the game took control away from me, forcing me to walk into a pile of manure, because they just can't trust me to even walk on my own to a goddamn mission marker. And when you actually have control, it doesn't get any better. On one mission I had this scenario where an evil colonel illegally was killing Native Americans and oppressing them. A gunfight broke out and I had to ensure the escape of a friendly officer. I had a shot at the evil colonel. I went through a meticulous risk-reward thought process of should I take that shot. I figured that we are already in a gunfight with soldiers from the US Army here, so things are already almost as bad as they can be. I figured that if I shoot the colonel, someone would take his place that would inherit the hot war scenario of us shooting at the soldiers, but chances are the next colonel would be more of a man of reason and would be more lawful. So I ended up with the conclusion of making the choice of having a fight against the army soldiers with an unknown replacement colonel in hopes of one day resolving the situation instead of letting the colonel live and have more or less that same conflict with a colonel that wants the Native Americans dead. So after quickly weighing my options, I took the shot and mission failed. Later in that same mission, I fought the attacking soldier to defend an ally by running around near him with my horse and shooting at the enemies. And the game felt that 10 meters was a distance too far away from him, and mission failed. A thing that also happened once in Rhodes was that during a story mission, the town was empty, so I thought, hey, good plan, now's my chance to go get the cash register from the general store. But I couldn't interact with anything in the store because that was not the exact specific thing Rockstar wanted me to do in that spot of that story mission. One more thing about the missions that needs to be said is that it commits even worse sins in taking control away from you, in that if you actually have the ability to, play well and shoot the enemy in a story mission, chances are that said enemy is immortal because Rockstar wants them to do something, which just feels weird because they clearly are not above physically taking all control away from you. Then why do they sometimes let that happen to bring focus on their blunt and ham-fisted mission structure of just making some enemies immortal until they do the story thing Rockstar wants them to do? This happens both with animals and humans. I also have another physics issue, because the Rockstar approach to physics seems to be about everything being heavy and falling over, and having so many detailed animations that they conflict between each other and cancel each other out. It's so cluttered at times that at your gang's camp, if you've just donated items or money and hit the button to go for the ledger without moving Arthur at all, there's a solid chance that the ledger animation just cancels itself out, because physics. And one more thing, why can I just not donate all of my valuable items on one go? Why does it boot me out into the world away from the menu after something like 10 or 15 items, and then I need to go do that same song and dance all over again? Also, even the tiniest drop in terrain tends to cause Arthur or his horse or both to fall over. It can be funny, but it seems needlessly prone to make you fall on your face. The physics also get real happy when you even slightly bump into something the game deems to be more solid. The wagon fence at the Emerald Ranch seems to be made out of antimatter, because if you even slightly touch him while bringing your wagon to be sold, the horse falls down like it's been shot. Speaking of the horse, I had this important life lesson happen to me one time, that it turns out that the act of getting on your horse and the act of doing a world-class UFC tackle on an old lady next to the horse are the same button, which then causes the witness and bounty system to ruin your day. Oh, and the witness and bounty system. Short answer, it's unrealistic, annoying, and a hindrance. I can accept that shooting up a town or attacking someone in a town is a crime and should come with a bounty and such, but 99% of my bounties happen when I'm trying to just go through town. An NPC headbutts my horse and I get a bounty on me and that's it. It feels super great when you've done the song and dance of getting the kill on a legendary animal and are transporting it back to be sold, only to have someone refuse to make room in Strawberry, and you get a net loss because you became a wanted criminal with a bounty. Sometimes NPCs will even dodge into my horse to have that same thing happen. You also have a bandana that clearly says on it, hide your identity while committing crimes, and I'm like, oh good, I should just make sure to put that on before going on a story mission, because story missions tend to leave you with bounties that are your problem to deal with afterwards. Only problem, even though the game clearly says it hides your identity, it doesn't. When you commit crimes with a bandana or any mask on, you get identified as Arthur Morgan doing this thing and that crime, and the bounty goes on you because people in the Old West all have retinal scanners apparently. The game also has an honor system that is basically a good versus evil karma system that is about as archaic and nonsensical as you can get. If you happen upon a lone person lying on the ground and go check on him to see if he's okay or if he says anything that will bring about an activity or something, he pulls a gun on you. You choose to defuse the situation and start walking away. He opens fire on you and you defend yourself, and you lose karma. Because defending yourself against an NPC is evil. I've also lost karma because I shot a bear in bullet time, which seems like a glitch, and I've lost karma by throwing dynamite in a pond to get fish, because fishing efficiently is evil. If I would have killed the same fish in a different way, that would not be evil. But if you take a tip on a stagecoach and brutally murder everyone around said stagecoach, that's not evil and you don't lose honor. Because, okay then. A thing I have very mixed feelings about is the hunting and the fishing, because as a base concept I tend to enjoy hunting and fishing mechanics in games. I also tip my hat at the game for putting in the detail of having you skin animals with detailed animations. It looks visceral and impressive. But your kills become rotten at the drop of a hat. If any other animal or fish even sniffs the corpse, it becomes rotten and unusable. My personal record is getting a rotten animal in 7 seconds after the kill. Another thing that really hurts the hunting is the concept of perfect pelts. In order to craft things like inventory upgrades or camp stuff or outfits, you need perfect pelts, which you get by finding an animal that has quality of 3 out of 3 stars, which is a pain in on itself, but then you need to kill said animal with a very specific weapon and or a very specific ammo type. And then the kill needs to be a headshot, apart from the tiniest of animals sometimes. That is too much. This sucks out the fun of the hunting because the requirements for not only getting, for example, a panther to spawn and then getting a perfect pelt out of one and hoping said panther is a 3-star panther. Again, it took me 2 hours to even spawn one panther, let alone getting a perfect pelt out of one. This kills all the fun out of hunting, and the crafting system is more like a list of items you can never get unless you devote dozens upon dozens of hours of your time only to that. It's too much. Even if you take 2 repeater headshots to an animal, then skin the animal while leaving the head on the corpse, the pelt is still too damaged because the psychological damage of the head transfers to the fur. Great, but at least the hunting has no bugs, right? Well, about that, here's an instance of a bug where I had hunted 2 perfect small alligator pelts. I put them on my horse, but they never appeared in the inventory. I couldn't sell or access them, and all I had for my hard work was 2 bugged out pelts stuck on my horse. Just marvelous. The fishing is also problematic, because in order to reel in your rod, you need to quickly rotate the right stick. With the big fish, this can take minutes. Try to do that as fast as you can for a minute or 2. Actually, maybe don't do that, because if you did, you would now be in physical pain. This means the fishing controls suck the big one. Why can't we hold down a button to reel in? Because the game has to inconvenience the player. Fishing also brings out one of the more glaring cases of why the horse storage is an inconvenient hodgepodge of realism and just being a bad inventory system. You can store on your horse dozens of pistols and rifles, dozens of animal pelts and whatever else, but only 1 somewhat large fish. Not 2, just 1. That's it. taking the fish to town takes a good chunk of time, so the horse storage problem also really discourages you from even doing any fishing. That and the fact that the fishing causes pain and a carpal tunnel syndrome. Also, why is there no clear command for the horse to stay? We can pat and brush and lead and feed the horse and make it come to us, but stay? No, we couldn't put a clear command for that on the list here. It would be too convenient, and that's just not the way we do things apparently. I know this has been a lot of complaining about the game, but I wanted to bring forth the things that genuinely made my experience with the game problematic, and these issues keep the game from being truly incredible. As it stands, it's this weird hybrid of a near-perfect open world that has horridly rigid and unforgivingly strict story missions that just don't fit in an open world game. And when you actually play in that near perfect open world, there's just a wall of issues that makes the gameplay design feel at best clunky and unintuitive, and at worst hopelessly outdated by quite a long margin. And I don't envy the people who need to give this game a number score, because massive chunks of the overall product are near perfect, and some very vital parts, like almost everything involving the player, are in my opinion hopelessly subpar. It looks like the endless work hours were used on creating detail into the animations and into the open world, and the gameplay was left with too little attention. I would have enjoyed the game more if it was the other way around. I do have to commend though that the game is pretty solid on the glitch front. Apart from Arthur getting stuck in an endless gun equip loop a couple of times and a few weird individual glitches here and there, and that alligator skin glitch, it runs very well and has a shockingly small amount of considerable bugs or game-breaking stuff. That deserves credit. And I again have to emphasize that I bring out these issues because I like the game so much, and these are the things that keep it from being an absolute perfect piece of video gaming media. But instead, with all those issues here, I am more disappointed than I thought I could be about this game. But it is still a good game. And in that positive note, I'm all done here. I hope you've enjoyed this, and feel free to drop a comment if you agree or disagree about something. But if you have enjoyed, please do drop a like or even subscribe or share if you want to. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.